Hey everybody, before we get started, just a reminder this episode is supported by our patrons like Aka Comics, Qua, Jeremy Vasquez, Kylie Denton, Nestor Flores, and Sotasan0424. If you like what we do and want to see us do more, consider supporting us on Patreon. You can get access to episodes early and lots of other goodies, and it'll really help us out. Thanks for your support, everybody. Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. It is time once again for Enter the Dojo, that show I did twice and then stopped for like 2 or 3 months. Yeah, no, time really got away from me and I was really busy with other projects. But here, we're finally here, we're doing it. And we're doing the episode I said I wanted to do next, which we're going to talk about Hida Defender School today. So if this happens to be your first time watching Enter the Dojo, because, like I said, I did 2 and then I let it get away from me a little before I did another one. The basic idea was I really like a lot of the mechanical design elements in L5R, and also the way that a lot of these schools can kind of inform your character too. For instance, to shamelessly plug myself, if you check out the Miyamoto Duelist School episode, I talk about how, with the fact that it gives you lots of diverse skill choices, you can totally do that warrior poet thing perfectly well with that school. Hey, guess what? You're not going to do that with Hida Defender. Anyway. The idea is we're going to break down the school. We're going to talk about its different requirements and stuff. You know, what it gives you, what stuff you want to take with it. You know, we'll examine the curriculum and breakdown. And if this episode isn't like the earlier ones, it's because I've been off my game for, like I said, I think months. Literally months. But anyway, we're going to break down the school. We're going to talk about a lot of its choices and stuff. We're going to talk about different kinds of builds you can do with it, if they exist. Though you'll find that there is a little bit of extra stuff you can actually do with Defender. It's just interesting how narrowly focused it is. But we'll kind of talk through some stuff. I have scoured the book for technique recommendations. Hey, guess what? All of the Hida Defender's technique groups are kata, so it was really easy. But anyway, we'll talk about the abilities and stuff, and then at the end we'll kind of talk about what you can get out of the Crab Clan and the different Crab families for the school, with the caveat that technically in 5e, you don't need to do anything special to be trained in another clan's school other than come up with a justification for it. But if we do that, we're already going to be here for an hour. We'd have to be here for like 2 hours for me to run down the so if you're an Agasha who decided to go all the way south, no, that's, we'd be here forever. So we're not going to do that. We're going to focus instead on, flavorful choices, also mechanically relevant choices, and all kinds of different things that can, make this school interesting, let you get the most out of it, build an interesting character with it, or give your GM interesting plot hooks. So, with that out of the way, doing our whole intro bit, let's go ahead and talk about the school. So, well, obviously you will pick your school, your clan and family first. We kind of do this at the end because they're shorter and they're less focused. They're much more, what choices make the most sense for this school. And honestly, you probably should be thinking far enough ahead that by the time you know your clan and family choices, you know what school you're going to pick. But let's talk about the Hida Defender School. You have one tag, it's Bushi. Who could have guessed? So, right off the bat, if you look at just your rings and skill choices, you can probably see what this school is all about. Your rings are earth and water. Funny how that works. And you get to pick 5 skills. They are all combat skills except for survival. So you get to pick 5 out of, what's the total number again? So 7, so you gotta leave 2 out. But you've got all 3 of your martial arts on here. You've got meditation in here and tactics, so you've got a couple initiative choices. You've got fitness and you've got survival as your extra one. And now here's the thing. You can take martial arts ranged, and maybe you want to just to have a point in it, but you're not really a ranged, focused school. Like, look at your starting outfit. You can see that at the bottom. You don't get a Yumi or anything. All right, now, obviously, the Crab make great ranged weapons, but it's probably a little bit more of a Caillou thing than anything else, so you can probably skip that if you want to. Martial arts unarmed, though, is great just because you never know when you might have to clobber somebody. You are going to 110% want to take fitness because that just helps you with what you're good at, and we'll talk about the school ability in a second. Other than that, tactics or meditation are really great for just whatever you're doing with initiative and whatnot. Meditation can also be a really good general skill to get you over lots of problems you may have, so that's a good one. And, if you're not completely loaded up, like I said, on all the martial arts skills, you can take a survival if it suits you. It makes sense for your character, obviously, so, do what you want there. You have an honor of 40. All right, not terrible. Not too great, though. And you have access to kata, rituals, and shuji. Pretty typical for a bushi school. So, much like how you get no skills that aren't hitting people, or rather, fighting related, your starting techniques are all kata, too, as a Hida Defender. So, you get for sure Lord Hida's Grip as a kata, which you get early access to. That's normally a rank 2 crab technique. And if you're not familiar with that one, that's the special crab-only technique, so you gotta be a crab to take it unless you get a little diamond. And this lets you, as an attack action, you make a fitness void check, so there's that fitness being really important to you. Targeting a creature of silhouette 3 or larger, the TN is equal to the silhouette, and if you succeed, the target is immobilized and you grant assistance to everybody with you. If you have a single void opportunity, you can spend it to make them resist with a TN equal to your school rank. And if they fail, they take physical damage equal to their silhouette, which ignores resistance, which is good, and they suffer the prone condition. So this is a really good way for you to fuck up big, scary, gribbly monsters. You get in there and you wrestle them, you just push them, you smash something important like one of their toes. You can use it to lock down enemies, give your allies assistance, and scooch a little damage in under their resistance in there. You're going to do that a lot. And actually, I probably should have looked at Shadowlands again before doing this to double-check what kind of physical resistance all those greebly monsters do. But suffice it to say, especially because it's a big focus of the crab schools, especially Hida, greebly monsters tend to have lots of physical resistance. So there's that. And then you get to choose one. You either to choose Striking as Earth or Striking as Water. So in case you forgot what those did, they're pretty simple. Striking as Water lets you ignore physical resistance until the end of your next turn per op spend, so that's really good for that. Striking as Earth makes your physical resistance higher until the beginning of your next turn. Basically, it really depends on where you want to focus. Armor penetration is really good with Striking as Water, just shear through that resistance. Earth can be really good, but when we talk about your school ability, we'll note you're already pretty good at being high on your physical resistance, okay? You probably don't necessarily need it. On the other hand, for you, Earth stance may be more helpful than Water stance. Water gives you, that extra action. You might not really need that. You might want to turtle in Earth so that it's harder for enemies to crit you or stick you with nasty conditions so you can remain combat effective. The choice is really up to you what stance and what ring you see yourself using more. So let's talk about that school ability. You have Way of the Crab, so you get to ignore the cumbersome quality of any armor you wear. That's great. That means you can wear heavier armor without needing to worry about stuff. So let me actually double check. I have a little cheat sheet for all the armor that's been released across the couple of books and the Mantis thing. So that means that obviously, you ignore the cumbersome on lacquered armor, which is good, which you get. You can also ignore the cumbersome on plated armor, or in the Shadowlands book, the Oyuroi, the big old crabby armor, which is resistance 6 by base, if you can get your hands on some of that. So, yeah, it's a really good ability to just be like, oh, I don't take additional TNs because I'm big. I can, actually move around. And then, the real big deal is, once per round, before making a check to resist a critical strike, you may reduce the severity of the critical strike by the physical resistance of your armor plus your school rank. So, physical resistance of your armor, your special thing on Striking as Earth doesn't count, but it's whatever armor you're wearing, so probably 4, but possibly lower, or possibly higher. Could go up to 6, like we said. So scooch that down, and then you reduce your school rank to a minimum of 0. So once per round, you can just be like, nah, it didn't hit me. That didn't really hurt me as bad as it did. Now, this is obviously once per round, so, you gotta be careful when you proc it, but otherwise, very solid ability. Really sets up the Hida school. It's one of the things that a lot of people talked about, that Hida are pretty good duelists. I mean, I think that's debatable. If you're fighting like a Warriors duel or a sparring match or something, especially a Warriors duel where you're trying to, do all kinds of stuff to him, sure. Or maybe some kind of, special wrestling. The crab are not really known for EI Jutsu. And in fact, they've been known to, abuse the rules of EI Jutsu tradition. So, yeah, you can do some dueling shenanigans, but most Hida Defenders are not going to, like, ditch down to their ceremonial clothes, which, by the way, really screws your ability, and, like, turtle up to hit each other with katanas in a regimented way. That's not how they normally operate. But you could totally use Way of the Crab to your advantage in some duels if you have to. And for starting outfit, you get traveling clothes, you get lacquered armor, which is good. You get a full daisho. You can choose the Tetsubo or the Otsuchi, which is, basically, I think that's hammer or the Tetsubo, the Iron Club, or Iron Staff. That's really just, whichever suits your goals there. And actually, the fact that those are kind of that way will influence some technique choices later. You also get a vanilla club and a vanilla knife and a traveling pack, which you can fill with whatever. The real choice you got here is just Tetsubo or Otsuchi. So that's probably going to be on you. The Tetsubo requires 2 hands, as does the Otsuchi. Their damages are mostly similar. The Tetsubo, you got a little bit of flexibility. It's an iron spiked pole, and it's durable. The Otsuchi is not. But they're both pretty low deadliness, high damage weapons. On the other hand, the Tetsubo is much lower rarity, so, you might want to take the higher rarity weapon, and then you can pick up a Tetsubo later if you really need it. But let's move into actually talking about the techniques in the school curriculum now that we kind of covered this, because as you can see, there's not really a lot of different ways to build your Hida. The primary is going to be, like I said, which of those striking ads you pick, and kind of like, are you more about hurting enemies who are really tough, or are you more about not getting hurt, or somewhere in between? So let's continue that with those techniques. Alright, so, first off, ignore that left side. Don't look at it yet. It's my rule. Don't look at it. We're not going to talk about that yet. Let's walk through this curriculum first. So, obviously, you can tell from the setup, martial skills are pretty important. You get a lot of them, or at least the choice for a lot of them at start. And in fact, since there's really only one skill that's not martially focused on there, you kind of have to pick a lot. Even so, this will continue. As you'll notice, you get choice of general martial skills in a lot of zones, early and late. And then the ones in between, you get a couple of choices specifically for, like, martial arts, melee, and meditation. And fitness. Right, fitness is a martial skill. That weirds me out sometimes, but yes, that's correct. Fitness is a martial skill. So, yeah, you're gonna get good at hitting things. The only real issue here is that obviously you're staying in curriculum for that bonus XP, so you can rank up quicker. You're a little slim because the technique group comes up a lot, and you might actually want to spread it out a little. The ranks where you get your choice between fitness, martial arts, and melee and meditation all count. Those are pretty solid because those are probably your core 3, I think. Meditation is good for some forms of initiative and for certain types of resistances and stuff. Very helpful to you. Martial arts melee is obviously, hey, you're going to hit things with your big stick. And fitness is don't die from crits. Also do Lord Hida's grip better. You might also want like a tactics in there so you can get more initiative in that case, in those kinds of things like skirmishes. That's a good choice for your martial skills if you're confident. And obviously, you don't have to take skills necessarily just because they're in your curriculum. It's just we're talking about, what counts for what here. Now, interestingly enough, you also have a little bit of some other stuff in there. So, for instance, at rank 1 and then at rank 2, you get medicine and then theology as possible choices. All right, it's interesting. At your first 2 ranks, you can pick up command. And then, again, at rank 5 again. So they kind of mirror, weirdly enough. That's a really good one. Really big choice. So that can fit with if you're building that type of character, are you a staunch defender on the wall, a leader of men? The Hida are the core family of the crab. You're the big scary defender, so is that kind of what you do, That's a very reasonable choice, especially as early on. Medicine's a little weirder, normally people think of that as probably a Kuni thing, but you always need to be able to do a little bit of battlefield medicine, maybe. It comes up a couple times. You also will have the ability at rank 4 to pick up any scholar skill of your choice, which can be used for medicine also. Your rank 1 has that survival. Your rank 2 is labor, which makes sense. Obviously, samurai are not necessarily about that. But hey, sometimes you gotta fix a fucking wall. Or build a wall. Or a berm. Dig a pit so Shadowlands monsters can fall in it and you can stab them. or smash them with tetsubos. You know, you got all kinds of stuff. So you got a couple points of theology that can show up in there. Those are decent for identifying like spookables and stuff, but probably not going to be your main focus. It only comes up a couple of times, and then there's your 1 rank where you can pick up any scholar skill, so that's a little looser depending on whether or not you're following your curriculum. You do get a blanket trade skills at rank 3, which can be used for like your survival or your labor or other stuff, if it makes sense. But you see a lot of the repeated themes and skills. You're seeing a lot of martial. You're going to hit people. You're seeing a little bit of medicine, a little bit of theology. So you can identify spookum things, and you can maybe heal somebody with first aid. There's a little bit of command. That's early, so you might want to pick that up early, so build up a little bit of a social option. Not that Hida are great at that. Like, that's explicitly going outside your school training, is talking to people and not hitting things. Other than command, yelling at people. A little bit of labor. Maybe, maybe not. That really depends on what your character's planning on doing in your campaign, but it's there if you want to take that option. And like I said, loads of those hitting people and not getting hit skills. So let's talk about what techniques you do get. So first off, we'll talk about the technique groups later. That's what that left side you're not looking at yet is. But you get some interesting pre-choices here, and you do actually get a fair number of shuji because you get a lot of just flat out all your spoilers. All your technique group choices are kata. So don't worry, we'll cover through all that. That'll be the longer half of this middle segment. But you get a decent number of shuji, and you get a decent number of techniques early. For instance, at rank 1, you can get rushing avalanche style, which is really good because you have blunt weapons. So, hey, guess what? You're probably going to use it. And for those of you who don't remember, rushing avalanche is a close combat, so it's only with melee. You got to use a blunt weapon. You can spend a couple of ways. If you fail a little bit, you can make them suffer physical damage equal to your fitness. Or if your target is prone and you succeed, you can increase the damage you deal by your fitness. Which, hey, flows really well with Lord Hida's grip, so you're going to want to pick up Rushing Avalanche. It's really ideal for you because you get a lot of fitness and because you're using a blunt weapon. So, I missed, I'll just club him a little bit, throw in a little bit extra damage on there. Oh, he's knocked down, I'll smash him real good. Pretty solid. You also can pick up Honest Assessment at rank 1. Shuji are really good. You got to think about whether or not you're going to pick up on them because you don't get a lot of social skills in curriculum to actually, activate them. But, yeah, so I'm looking at it just now. I'm double-checking. Honest Assessment, for instance, requires a TN2 Courtesy Earth check. Now, you're going to have a lot of Earth, but the question is, are you going to roll just ring dice? Are you going to put any points in Courtesy as a skill? Probably not. You might, but it might be a little rough. That said, if you do, you get to choose a target's disadvantage that you know, and they do not apply that until the end of the scene. You can make this additional disadvantages and reduce the check. So this lends up what I think are the two types of builds, especially like we said, depending on whether or not you're being more earth or water focused. Obviously, you'll be fairly well-rounded, and you'll want to kind of like bring up all your rings so you can keep buying up stuff. Get your void up there, because you're going to use void a lot, actually, too, for other stuff. But are you going to be a supportive Hida, the kind of guy who stands there and is like, no, I'm a big iron wall. Nobody can hurt me. I will protect my friends and let enemies beat up on me so they don't get hurt kind of thing? Or are you going to be, I'm going to fucking smash monsters? So Rushing Avalanche is definitely, I'm going to smash monsters. Honest Assessment is, I'm here to support people. You're better than you think you are. You can do better, and we're going to do that stuff. The problem is, are you going to take the courtesy so that you can activate those extra opportunities? Maybe. That's a thing to keep in mind. That's going to be out of your curriculum. You're going to get half XP for those skills, and then you got to buy the Shuji. But the Shuji counts, so it kind of comes back around in terms of advancement. It's just a little weird. But hey, maybe you can be brutally honest and actually, be courteous. It's weird. But it fits. The fluff is weird. The actual effect it has, letting your allies ignore disadvantages, and maybe even yourself. It does say a character. You are a character, so maybe you can be honest about yourself. That's a little weird. That kind of makes sense for Hida, though. But it actually helps out. Now, at rank 2, you get 2 choices of kata. Not kata, Shuji. I'm down. Herb derp. So first off, you get early access to Touchstone of Courage, which is a rank 3 Earth. Now, this requires a command, which you do have a couple of ranks in, so that'll work out well. And Touchstone of Courage works during an intrigue, duel, or skirmish, And if it works until the end of the scene, everybody increases their composure by your Earth Ring. This is great. You can just be like, hey, we're huge. In a mass battle, increase your discipline by Earth Ring. Also great. And then you've got a couple of options to remove panic or remove strife. This is a good choice, especially with early access. You are a big, strong Hida who don't need no katana. You only need to club, but you can basically be like, hey, morale is good. I am here. Everybody, don't freak out as much. And obviously, since this does include a duel, that can include for yourself. Or somebody actually brought this up on the forums recently. They were talking about, potential interference on the outside. There is a whole plot point that there's interference in the duel for the Emerald Championship. Theoretically, while obviously you could get caught and maybe the Hida would lose some glory or even honor for it, I don't know if there's necessarily anything on the paper wrong with your big Hida buddy standing next to you during a duel and going, fold your arms and be like, yes, you've got this. I am here for you. I don't know. That might be a little weird with the way the duel structure works, but still. It's got a lot of versatility. You're going to want to try and pick this one up if you can spare it, especially if you are going the command route. And then you also can pick up the Water Shuji, Slippery Maneuvers. This is another great one. This is another command check, but it's TN2 water. And you can use it for skirmishes or mass battles. So during a skirmish, you allow allies to move towards terrain. And then mass battle and there's some other stuff. But that's a really solid one. Slippery Maneuvers is one of the, I think, key Shuji that most Bushi want to take because it lets you move allies around, even though it's a social technique. So that's a great one for you to be like, now let's scooch to a safe position. So now at rank 3, you get another early access. You get a lot of early access in this. You can take the Kata Iron in the Mountain style, and you can take the Shuji Rallying Cry. Since I am in the Shuji section right now, I'm going to talk about Rallying Cry first. So, Rallying Cry is interesting. It's a fire. It requires commander performance. But you can get a little extra opportunity, and you can give your enemies strife. Theoretically, this makes sense for a Hida to be the Rallying Cry, much like the Touchstone of Courage. Like, you're that big guy leading from the front, smashing shit. Commanding mass battles and that kind of stuff. If you're in a situation where you're in a mass battle, it's probably solid. That gets you some stuff out of it. But the opportunity strife until your next turn, it can be a little risky. And it's also fire. Fire's not one of your primary rings. We're going to talk about that with some kata selections later. So obviously, you'll be decently rounded, but you're probably not pushing too hard on it. And if you're not going the command route, I don't really think it's super worth it, because it's just one other type of support action you can take. If you are definitely more focused, though, on leading mass battles, or if that's the direction you're campaigning, it's a solid choice. Now, Iron in the Mountains, though, that's a really good one. That's normally the rank 4 Earth-focused technique. So, hey, guess what? If you do it, when you make a check, you can spend opportunity to make them prone and give them fatigue or a shortfall based on a check they have to make, and increase the TN by opportunity. So if you're fighting an Earth, it's a great opportunity to take, knock people prone, sets you up for rushing avalanche, and also, drops them down, does all kind of stuff. It's a really great kata for you. You're gonna probably want it, especially if you are leaning more heavily into, say, Earth than Water. Disable people, set them up for a big smash. Rank 4, you've got Striking as Void, solid choice. Striking as Void is when you're in your Void stance, which, hey, that's how you do your Lord Hida's Grip, in case you forgot. You didn't. You can perform an action if you failed. That's an action you've not performed. Or you can switch to a different stance with an opportunity. So, grip somebody, knock them prone or something, immobilize them, whatever. You can spend a Void opportunity to be like, and now I'm in Earth stance. No counterattack. Or however you feel like it. Very effective. It's good to have as an early access. Or, like I said, goo, I failed. I need to do something else. Strike as Void, I can get another action. And then your other option is a Samurai's Fate. It's another pretty solid normal Shuji. That's a Void Shuji. So you got to be doing the Voids to do that. But Samurai Fate is another command type. You'll be a decent Void, though. And you can make targets ignore critical strikes with severity lower to your Void Ring plus bonus successes. Or you gain a little Fearless Army ability. Again, that's kind of... Actually, let me double check. Is that another character? Any number of characters. So, I guess that applies to you two and everybody. So, as far as I can tell, I'd have to double check if there's some kind of note. Is there a targeting shuji? Alright, I don't see any notes about, you can't shuji yourself. So, I'm pretty sure you can drop a Samurai's Fate on yourself, which helps if you do actually take a critical strike. Otherwise, it's probably mostly pretty good for other people in a harsh fight. Once again, it really depends on where your focus is. And then for your final, you get 2 more shuji choices that are in curriculum. You get Rouse the Soul and the Immovable Hand of Peace. So, let's see. Which type is Rouse the Soul? Is that a... Yeah, Rouse the Soul is a void. So, you make a social skill or theology void. And you can use this to spend... When you're making a social void or a theology void targeting one or more characters, spend op the following way. Each op you can do spends a... to remove a condition, which includes afflicted or unconscious. So, that's a really good effect. Now, obviously, like I've said before on some of the other videos, I lean a little heavily into the, not necessarily, you can't just try a skill check just to get opportunity on it. Like, you have to be doing something to them. But there are a lot of different ways you might interpret that, especially with Void. And it kind of lets you sneak in some helpful effects. Really good. On all traits, especially that ability to remove afflicted is just an op spend. And then Immovable Hand of Peace is another great one. That's an Earth Shuji. I know that. That's the rank 5 Earth. Once per game session as a ski during a duel or skirmish, you make an Earth command check. And basically, if you succeed, you turn it into an intrigue. And then you can also, if you spend a single Earth opportunity, you can turn it into any kind of conflict. Which is probably what you want to do because you're not great at intrigues, so you're going to want that op. But yeah, so you can turn a duel or a skirmish into an intrigue or a mass combat, or turn a skirmish into a duel, or turn a duel into a skirmish, etc. if you get the op spend. So that's a really interesting ability because that lets you kind of like pick the terms. Like if you're like, oh shit, there's a blob of enemies here who are going to ambush me. I'm gonna call that Oni out, and I'm going to duel him. I'm going to have a warrior's duel, which I'm really good at, because I resist criticals real good. That kind of stuff. If you can get that opportunity spend. Or just be like, hold on, everybody, let's talk about this a second. If you are playing that more of a more charismatic, leaderly type, right? Like, you took those couple of dots in command. You took some of your theology, maybe, to be a little bit more erudite and have a commanding, reminding presence. Because you probably have a decent water ring. Water is the ring of charm. I know, obviously, you don't use water for Hand of Peace, but that's a good one. So that can really help you out in a lot of ways. So let's talk about those kata selections. You can now look at the left side of the screen. Hold on, I'm going to tab over to the kata section of the book so I can double check any of these. So, rank 1, you have a rank 1 kata to pick from. Pretty typical. My foremost recommendation is Warrior's Resolve. You can choose to use this opportunity to pick up another striking as. You've also, I guess, got a couple of spare weapons if you really want Soaring Strike, but I don't feel like that's your style. The important thing about Warrior's Resolve is you spend a void point, you get back fatigue equal to your honor rank. So you start at 4, assuming nothing terrible happened to you in character creation. So that's critical. Your school is all about not going down. You want to stand tall, you want other people to stand tall, and you want to make sure we're here and we're not going down. So the ability to just go, void point, no, I'm not as hurt as you thought I was. I'm not as tired. I got better. I woke up a little. I had some void coffee. That's perfect. That's ideal for you. So the next one, you get rank 1 to 2 kata. Remember how I said earlier that you only get kata choices? Yeah. This is a couple of ones. So this is another one of those things where it's like, there's a couple different ways. Obviously, it can be a rank 1, so you could go back if you want to pick up a different striking as or something. You can go back there if you missed Warrior's Resolve. But I think there are a couple key choices that you want. So Crescent Moon style means when you perform a guard action, you can spend one opportunity to counterattack, basically, after another target performs an attack against the targeting you or a character you are guarding. You can perform a strike action targeting that character and it persists until your next turn, and you do a strike. That's just good. That's good, especially if you're looking after squishies. Like if you've got like if you're a crab, your Shugenja are probably not squishy because the Kuni, one of the I think they're the only Shugenja school that gets full-blown kata access. They're basically Bushi Shugenja. But, or if you have, like, a softer a Courtier with you, or if you've got a Haruma who's a little bit squishy and really doesn't want to take a blow, you can disincentivize enemies and get a way to deal more harm. And it's focused on defending. So obviously that makes a lot of sense for you. But also very flavorful is Tactical Assessment, which even mentions, commentary by a Hida scholar. This basically gives you a whole new way to spend opportunities on initiative checks. So for your primary rings, Earth lets you pick another character and not have to apply one of their disadvantages until the end of their first turn. Basically a mini honest assessment. Water lets you choose a piece of terrain that counts as obscuring for checks targeting you or your allies until the start of your first turn. This is a good pick if you didn't roll well on initiative. And then there are some other ones depending on if you picked a couple of the other rings, other than Void. But this gives you a couple different options to slip in there. If you missed Rushing Avalanche, I guess you could take it, but I don't think it's pretty ideal. Iron Forest, not really your style. You don't really use pole arms. You might have multiple weapons, but Spinning Blades also isn't really your style, so I kind of ignored those. If you did want to build a duelist, I guess you could take an Iaijutsu cut, but like I said, that's not... Razor Edge is not really your thing. You're about big, blunt weapons. They're dealing lots of damage through physical resistance. Speaking of which, let's talk about your rank 3 choices. So, again, I thought the 2 ones were ideal. We're going to talk about your primary rings. So you've got Crimson Leaves Strike. This is the Earth. You make a martial arts check. You can give them a little bit of damage equal to your Earth ring, and then choose one of their readied weapons, and then they have to resist or they lose it. So, now, this is kind of a gamble, I think. It really depends on your campaign, so you need to think about this. If you're fighting a lot of enemies who are all gribbly teeth and claws and tentacles, I'm pretty sure Crimson Leaf Strike doesn't help you. If it's a natural weapon or an unarmed weapon, you can't disarm somebody of it. That's pretty clear. You can't knock it away, you can't take control of it. So it's useless. On the other hand, first of all, many Bushi are going to be reliant on melee-based weapon. Yeah, melee is the skill. Melee-based techniques. We were just talking about how, Iron Force isn't really your style. Well, maybe it's some crane guy you're fighting style. Or, lots of other stuff that are out there. Oh, that guy's really good at pole arms. That guy's really good at, two-handed swords. You're fighting a lion or something. God forbid you're fighting an enemy crab with an axe. It's very handy. And also, when you're dealing with those Gribbly Shadowlands monsters, a lot of those guys tend to have nasty stuff like obsidian-edged katanas and other weird, dumb stuff like that, which have nasty qualities like unholy you really don't want to mess with. So, just being like, no, get thee hence, get that out of here. That can be a big deal to you. But flowing water is pretty good for you also. One, water's another one of your primary rings. But you make a martial arts check with water for the appropriate skill for your readied weapon. So you can give them damage, and then you can give them bleeding, which is really annoying to everybody. But also you get to spend a water opportunity to remove dazed, disoriented, immobilized, or prone from yourself. Also, another important thing is it damages targets at 0 to 2, regardless of the range of your weapon. Got a Tetsubo, and they get into range 0, I can still flowing water you. This is really good, especially if you're in water, and you're like, I'm in water stance. I have to trade my ability to ignore conditions being applied to me on opportunity spends from Earth. Or don't, just get rid of them. This can be really handy. You don't want conditions on you. You want to be in your top fighting shape, like we said. That's the whole point of your big, scary, critical ignoring ability is just be like, no. Bah. I ignore this. Ignore that. You're going to tank those crits. So you can shed a lot of these nastier conditions on you. You can stick an opponent with bleeding, and you get that kind of range flexibility. I think that Flowing Water is more flexible than Crimson Leaves, but like I said, Crimson Leaves has a lot of advantages. You could also theoretically pick some stuff, like you could do Battle in the Mind. I think that's a little wasted on you. I gotta be honest, Heart Piercing Strike is not a great pick for you. You don't have the kinds of weapons that Heart Piercing likes. Heart Piercing needs high deadliness. Like, ideally, you want to be doing Heart Piercing with, like, a double-handed katana, a naginata, no dachi or something, right? You want high deadliness. While you do have a katana, and you could double-hand it, you are probably mostly... Your strat will be to do, 7 or 8 damage with your club or hammer and be like, no, I'm just going to slap you until you run out of stamina, and then I'm going to crush your head or something. So those weapons are not ideal for heart piercing, especially since fire isn't your focus. That's probably not a good one for you. And then, what's the other one? Is it Thunderclap? Thunderclap's the air one. So air is obviously not a ring you're necessarily invested in either. That can be a choice, though, because you basically get to slap all enemies in your range at once and push them back. So Thunderclap makes an alternate. It's not a primary focus, but obviously you could pick it if you feel like that's more your style. So rank 4, you get a rank 1 to 4 kata. My only real suggestion here is Crashing Wave style. If you missed Iron in the Mountains at a previous rank, this is a really good time to pick it up. But Crashing Wave is so much your style as a Hida Defender. That's the one where you can spend water op to force them to make a fitness check. Otherwise, they suffer the bleeding condition and suffer fatigue or shortfall. This doesn't even matter if you hit. So this is just bonus damage and bleeding. And just, you're going to grind away at those targets. A really good idea to just keep whittling on enemies. And then also slap that bleeding on there. So, maybe they take some extra. Other than that, there's not really a lot. If you're not super enthused about Crashing Wave, this is a really good opportunity to go back and pick up maybe some of those other options that you didn't that still count. And so let's go to the rank 1 to 5 kata. Now, this one's also another one that's pretty simple. So there's only a few rank 5 katas right now. And the game hasn't really added a lot more of those. So the obvious suggestion is Soul Sunder. Now, we'll talk about that in a second. So first of all, you've already got an opportunity to take Striking as Void. And you probably should have taken it. If not, you can take it here. But other than that, your only real option is Pin the Fan. Now, let's say this. There's nothing wrong with Pin the Fan, but we mentioned this earlier when I was talking about your initial skill choices. You don't really start with any ranged weapons. There are other schools who are better at picking ranged weapons. Sure, you could have picked up Hawk's Position or Pelting Hail, but a lot of your curriculum focus is going to be in melee and hitting people up close. Pin the Fan's perfectly serviceable. You're probably not going to have the martial arts ranged you want to work on there, alright? So that can be very favorable, but there are better schools for that. That's what your Caillou or maybe your Hiruma buddy is for. So it's Soul Sunder. Why? Because you get to do a Void meditation check, which you should be pretty good at, and one of your weapons gains the Sacred quality, and increases your deadliness by bonus successes if you smack an otherworldly being on a critical strike. You can spend Void opportunity to otherworldly beings can't attack you. You can immediately perform a strike. Your effect persists. That's great. That's freaking great. The only thing that hurts me about Soul Sunder is it takes so long to get there. It's rank 5, right? So that's a minimum. Mostly that's minimum. You got to be rank 4 to get an early access. But you can get a sacred weapon. Any of your weapons can become sacred. No need to go through the whole Jade Inlay or whatever option. And you get to do extra damage to otherworldly beings. You can make it so otherworldly beings can't attack you. That's great. Especially if you are a Hida Defender at high levels. You are probably tackling a few gribbly monsters which are otherworldly, and it's just super great to you. Oh, that does remind me, we didn't actually talk about your mastery ability. Whoops, I should have talked about that sooner. So the mastery ability for this school is Mountain Does Not Fall. At the beginning of your turn, you can spend a Void Point. If you do, you ignore all conditions, terrain, and negative persistent effects of techniques and abilities. You do not apply your disadvantages to checks. If you would die, you cling to life for a few moments longer. You still die when the effect ends. This lasts until the end of your next turn. So basically, you spend a Void Point and you're like, no, I'm not dying. I will ignore all my disadvantages. I will ignore all my negative modifiers of terrain or anything you would try to do that makes me worse. And also, even if you stab me, I don't die until my next turn's over. Very solid ability. Really rounds out the class and kind of defines what you're doing in this school, right? You're not dying. You definitely don't die. You try to take as little damage as possible, and you smack people really hard, and you don't care about that other stuff in between. So that's really your curriculum. As you can see, you're good at hitting things. You're not necessarily good at not hitting things. You might have a little trouble with some of the non-hitting things abilities you can take. I would highly recommend you take those couple of options in command if you want to get up there. And God knows, honest assessment, it's not hard, but at least pump you're going to pump your Earth Ring anyway. So there's no need to tell you to do that. But wow, are you gonna take it out of courtesy, learn some lessons in life? And it's a very tightly focused school, right? You see very little branching in the skills it offers. If you're buying other skills, you're going off curriculum. Not that that's bad, it's just limits your build, and obviously, it's not in your school focus, so there's role-playing concerns, or just at least, like, well, it's not your school, so you can branch out if you like, but that's not how your school works. A lot of focus. You're going to lean heavily into that earth and water. You can, as I've noted, take techniques that are fire or air. You're probably not going to be as effective as them, and they're not necessarily to your style either. And you're going to probably be popping those shuji. You do learn mostly to be like, either yourself or people around you be like, no, you stick in this, don't die, don't lose your cool, don't have anything bad happen. Alright, so let's talk about some of the bonuses on top of this that you get out of your possible clan and family. So now that we spent way too long talking about techniques and skill checks and stuff and, like, what you're actually good at, let's roll this around and we're going to talk about kind of like how your clan and family choices can kind of influence your school and do good for you. We'll talk about the Crab Clan. This will be probably like 30 seconds, but hey, Crab Clan, right up here. You can see that their ring you get a bonus in is Earth. The skill you get a bonus is in Fitness. Who could have guessed this? Yeah, basically, if you're playing a Crab Clan and you play a Hida Defender, you're pretty on point. This allows you to either easily double up on Fitness. You can also probably very easily max out your Earth ring. You might be able to max out Fitness even. We'll see about that in a second when we talk about families. Or you can be like, oh, well, I've got a point or two into Fitness. I can spread that out and I can get more hitting people skills. Your status is 30 because you're not a core clan. You're not one of the 3 guys centered right around the Imperial Palace capital. Excuse me, I hiccuped. And the Crab have 5 families: Hida, Hiruma, Akayu, Kuni, and Yasuki. So that's, as you'll see when we get to the next slide in a second, that's really going to fuck up my formatting. But you have a lot of choices to pick from if you're a Crab Clan. And obviously, the school, which is centered around the clan founder and head family, is really synonymous with the clan bonuses. It works out really well. It might be a little dull, but it works out okay. So let's go ahead and do that thing and move in and talk about those different families and what they mean. So your family selection here can actually be a lot more interesting and impactful. We have 5. Yes, they're a little squished because there's 5 of them. Formatting. So your old pal Hida family, you can pick either Earth or Fire. So this can help kind of massage, like I talked about how before, like in your school anyway, Fire's not really your focus, but Fire can help you a lot, or you could use it to easily get Earth 3. But you can pick a little Fire. Fire's a really good ring for certain types of striking. You get that bonus effect in there of bonus successes on strife symbols. Can really help you dish out some damage. You also get a point of command and a point of tactics. We talked about how tactics is a little skimpier in your skill selection. It's a really good one to slip in there. And command, obviously, to actually give you a social point. You get Glory 44 and Starting Wealth 4 Koku. Doesn't really matter. Obviously, Hida goes really well with Hida Defender. It gives you some of the starting skills you might want or need. Gives you heads up on some stuff. It can help you kind of vary out your rings a little bit better when you start, and make your build a little bit more rounded as you move up. You're still probably not going to take Heart Piercing Strike because it's just not good with the Tetsubo, okay? But you could probably find some dumb build that works. Next up, the Hiruma family gets to pick either air or water. That's a solid one. That means you're looking at, like, I think minimum... Yeah, that'll be minimum Earth and Water too, spread out between your school and your clan and your family. So that's a good one. You get the skills of Skullduggery and Survival. You can actually take another point of Skullduggery in there. You got a trade skill slot. Gives you the Survival you need. It's not ideal, but I'm sure there are occasionally some giant Hiruma children who are born, and they exist just to hit things, so they can probably go to the Hida school. It's got a little bit of symmetry. Yeah, I mentioned this earlier. You got a lot of synergy and kind of like integratedness in the school. So Hiruma works pretty good too with some of that. Now, Kaiju family is also interesting. They also get either Earth or Fire ring. They get the 40 starting glory, and they get a little bit more extra money, 5 Koku. But their skills are smithing and labor. Now, labor is also an option. Smithing, you're not really going to have any other opportunity to take in school, but much like medicine, hey, it doesn't help to be able to repair your own shit. So, Kaiju could easily slot in there. Earth or Fire choice. You could take a point of labor, get a heads up on that, because that's in your school. Play a little bit differently, but the Hida Defender is really good for anybody who wants to be melee focused. Now, the Kuni family is also super interesting. So they get Earth or Void, which we've talked about before. Void's actually a really important ring for you. So if you're not good at magic and you don't want to be a punch monk, you can try and hit people with sticks, which are made of metal. So Void could work for you. Your skill choice is medicine and theology, or it's not even choice. Your skill bonuses are medicine and theology. Very key here. So those are pretty good to get in there and slot in. Either of those can be pretty valuable. And in fact, well, medicine is, let me double check back earlier slides. Medicine, yeah, medicine's rank 1. Theology is rank 2. So you want to talk about like getting into your backup, either of those works as kind of like a heads up. Medicine's not really a heads up because you're starting at rank 1, but a theology is a little bit of a like, oh, well, I can branch out into this later. So that works. Now, there's one family that you may notice is a little bit different. They stand out a little bit, and they're kind of weird. Now, the Yasuki do get air or water. We mentioned with Hiruma, water's perfectly serviceable for you. Their skills are commerce and design. These don't really add anything. Like, okay, Hida does get technically a trade skill. You could take a second point of commerce and be in school. You're not really a merchant. None of your abilities key off that. You have like basically no social skills. Design is like smithing makes sense. You can maintain your gear. Design's like no. So you could perfectly serviceably, like that water ring, you could perfectly serviceably take this family and make it work. But boy howdy, you're gonna have some weird skills which are probably gonna dangle at 1 for a while. If you wanted to play a big burly Yasuki, you could do that, but God, it's unusual. Okay. They also get Glory 39, and then they start with 10 Koku, so they do have the advantage that you could buy whatever weapons you want, but gosh darned. Other than the choice of water, they are a really unusual mix there. So yeah, you can kind of see all of them have a little bit of synergy with the school, some obviously more than others. If you're doing a traditional Hida, the Hida family is obviously a big one, or even like a Kuni who didn't have any Shugenja or any mystical stuff going on, who wanted to go into big burly hitting things. But even Hiruma and Caillou work out pretty well. Yasuki is, like I said, that's a bit of an oddball. You can make it work, though. And obviously, like we said at the beginning, 50 minutes ago or whatever, I don't actually, because I'm not done editing it, I don't know how long this actually is going to be. But we're not going to talk about every little family. But basically, if they've got an earth or water bonus, you can make them work. You can make some other rings work, too. You can see what kind of skills have obviously matched up if you want to make something that's synergistic. And I will say, like, obviously as a GM, I'm open to interesting stories, but if you're doing this kind of character build, you should at least do it so that it makes sense. Like if you're some kind of, like, super skinny air family, who focuses on pretty artsy things or, like, high-level knowledge shit or talking to people shit, why are you a Hida Defender, right? Like, how much of an oddball are you that your family's early education is completely useless to you and you have been shipped to a crab school, okay? So think about that. Like, you must have really sucked at those things then, I guess. But then your ring and stuff choices aren't necessarily gonna... It's weird. Like, it's hard to build an oddball character who makes sense, right? Who doesn't just have dead skills. But, that's kind of the point of the setting, is to make cookie-cutter samurai. So, you can tell interesting stories, just like I said. Watch for doing stuff that stabs you in the toe, or just doesn't make any fucking sense. Also, I think I technically said stab you in the toe. Whatever, stub your toe. And that is our episode of Enter the Dojo on the Hiruma Defender School. I hope everybody had fun. I talked probably way too much, but I've been, it's been a while since I did one of these, so I felt kind of like I had to refresh myself and the audience on some subjects and kind of talk over some stuff. If I can actually keep a production schedule, I'm hoping for maybe like 2 a month, every couple of weeks. Not necessarily one every week, but hopefully more than one a month, and definitely more than one like every 2 or 3 months, or however long the gap was that I didn't look up. Because I really don't want to know. It would make me feel sad. But hopefully as we kind of like get back into tempo on this, I don't feel the need to necessarily cover like, oh, you'll remember what honest assessment does sort of stuff. Though, hey, if you like the refreshers on the techniques, let me know in the comments. Let me know all kinds of stuff in the comments. I feel like the intro music, for instance, in this is cut a little too long, but it's like, I can't really edit it any tighter. So let me know about stuff. Let me know, your thoughts on the formatting and things for people. Give me feedback, because it's been a while since I did this. I want to try and finagle some more stuff. So that's Hida Defender. There, you got some details. What kind of stuff it does, what kind of stuff the school doesn't do, how you can do interesting stuff with the school. You got a couple different options in there, some massaging, some fun families you can pick maybe. And yeah, I don't really know what else to do in this subject, so we're going to keep going. I don't really know what the next school is. Like, I want to talk about... I talked about Kakita first because I felt like they were unfortunately maligned. I talked about Mirumoto next because they're really good and really cool. I talked about Hida Defender next because they were also really interesting. I've been talking mostly about Bushi. I feel like I want to throw a Courtier or a Shugenja school in here. If you have any suggestions on which one of those I should cover, I could talk about those. I mean, if we're talking about iconic schools for different clans, then I feel like, if I want to talk about Shugenja, Isawa is a really good one. We could also throw in a monk school. We could talk about Togashi tattooed monks, though I don't know if I want to double up on any particular great clan right away, And basically, if you have any comments, if you're watching this video, let me know what kind of schools you'd like me to pick next. I kind of want to do a few more core book schools before I jump into source book schools, even though there are a couple of schools in Shadowlands that are super cool and I'm super excited about. I'd love to talk about them.
Protip, one of them's Taoist Blade. That'd be really dirty to do another Mirumoto school right after like I did. That was number 2.
Anyway, so I 100% want to talk about those later. And there are some interesting Emerald Empire schools, and we can even talk about some of the Imperial ones, is kind of like how interesting they are. Not Kolat, never Kolat. But yeah, there's a lot of great suggestions and stuff in there. Just let me know which kind of direction you're thinking. Maybe I'll run a Patreon poll or a YouTube poll or something. I'll narrow it down, get some feedback. Otherwise, I don't know. I could feel a Shugenja. Haven't really talked about invocations. Could totally jump in and talk about Isawa. Or I can just, continue to woefully talk about stuff just I want to talk about because I feel like it, and talk about Kaito because that's another school I freaking love. Anyway, all that out of the way. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this video, give it a like. That's, especially after this long gap, that's really good to remind me that we're actually getting engaged when you're actually here. If you have any comments, like I said, leave those in the comment section down below. We also have a Discord. That link will be in the description. Chat with us about stuff. Someday I'll get to run this game for people. If you are new here and haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. I do L5R videos fairly regularly. I've done a novel review. I've talked about the 2 source books that have come out. I've done some other interesting, not only have I done 2 more of these, obviously, but I've done some other think piece, video essays. I've walked through character creation. I've talked about the ideal of duty versus desire. I might do some more of those types of stuff as other things emerge. So I'm whole hog on this edition of L5R. They finally got me. It took another edition refresh to me to finally be like, and a timeline reset for me to finally be like, okay, yes, I can get into this now. I'm free of baggage from the fact that this game first came out when I was 3, I think. Yeah, hey, if you've been playing L5R since it started, there's a mind blower for you. I don't think I could talk real good. I definitely couldn't read or write. Anyway, that's that. Also, consider supporting us at Patreon, like it says at the front. Not only can you get access to episodes early, but because these are so long, they're available as little mini podcast audio downloads if you just want to listen to me talk about it. It's not as fun as it is with the visual aids, but there's still a decent amount of usefulness there. Go ahead and check those out. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Everybody, keep your honor. Stay 3 feet away from death at all times. And, you're a mountain. Don't fall down. It's real good advice. Don't fall down.